Mongol Empire, empire founded by Genghis Khan in 1206. Originating from the Mongol heartland in the steppe of Central Asia, by the late 13th century it spanned from the Pacific Ocean in the east to the Danube River and the shores of the Persian Gulf in the west. At its peak, it covered some 9 million square miles, 23 million square km of territory, making it the largest contiguous land empire in world history. Origin and growth. Genghis Khan, ink and color on silk, in the National Palace Museum, Taipei, Taiwan. The year 1206, when Temujin, son of Yesugei, was elected Genghis Khan of a federation of tribes on the banks of the Onan River, must be regarded as the beginning of the Mongol Empire. This federation not only consisted of Mongols in the proper sense, that is, Mongol-speaking tribes, but also other Turkic tribes. Before 1206, Genghis Khan was but one of the tribal leaders fighting for supremacy in the steppe regions south and southeast of Lake Baikal. His victories over the Karaite, and then the Nayman Turks Bukhara, Samarkand, and the capital Urgench were taken and sacked by Mongol armies 1220–21. Advanced troops after crossing the Caucasus even penetrated into southern Russia and raided cities in Crimea 1223, bordering in the north on the sparsely populated forest belt of Siberia and in the south on the Pamirs Tibet and the central plains of China. This empire contained a multitude of different peoples, religions and civilizations, and it is only natural to seek the motivating force behind this unparalleled expansion. But this ideological imperialism had no foundation in nomadic society as such. It was most probably due to influences from China, where the one world, one ruler ideology had a long tradition. The creation of nomad empires in the steppes and the attempts to extend their rule over the more settled parts of Central Asia and finally over the whole known world may also have been influenced by the desire to control the routes of intercontinental land trade. The desire for plunder also cannot be ignored, and it was certainly not by accident that the first attacks by nomad federations were usually directed against those states which benefited from the control of trade routes in Central Asia, such as the famous Silk Road. Certainly the traditional antagonism between pastoral, nomadic steppe dwellers and settled agricultural civilizations has to be taken into account. Raids by nomads from the steppe had always occurred from time to time wherever powerful nomadic tribes lived in the proximity of settled populations. But they had not usually taken on the dimensions of a bid for world hegemony or domination, as in the case of Genghis Khan's invasions. Mongol armies were chiefly composed of cavalry, which afforded them a high degree of mobility and speed. Their movements and maneuvers were directed by signals and a well-organized messenger service. In battle, they relied mainly on bows and arrows and resorted to man-to-man fighting only after having organized the enemy's ranks. Mongol armaments and tactics were more suited to open plains and flat countries than to mountainous and wooded regions. For the siege of walled cities, they frequently secured assistance from artisans and engineers of technically advanced conquered peoples, such as Chinese, Persians, and Arabs. The once prosperous region of Khwarezm suffered for centuries from the effects of the Mongol invasion, which brought about not only the destruction of the prosperous towns, but also the disintegration of the irrigation system on which agriculture in those parts depended. A similarly destructive campaign was launched against Xizhi in 1226–27 because the Xizhi king had refused to assist the Mongols in their expedition against Khwarezm. The death of Genghis Khan during that campaign 1227 increased the vindictiveness of the Mongols. Before attacking, they usually asked for voluntary surrender and offered peace if this was accepted. The population was spared. If, however, resistance had to be overcome, Wholesale slaughter, or at least enslavement, invariably resulted, sparing only those whose special skills or abilities were considered useful. In the case of voluntary surrender, tribesmen or soldiers were often incorporated into the Mongol forces and treated as federates. Personal loyalty of federate rulers to the Mongol Khan played a great role, as normally no formal treaties were concluded. The Mongol armies, therefore, often consisted of only a minority of ethnic Mongols. The Xijia culture, a mixture of Chinese and Tibetan elements, with Buddhism as the state religion, was virtually annihilated. The city lay along the ancient Silk Road and was destroyed by Genghis Khan in the 13th century, however, gave him undisputed authority over the whole of what is now Mongolia. A series of campaigns, some of them carried out simultaneously, followed. Initial conquests. Zhaohe portion of the ruins of the ancient city of Zhaohe, Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, China. The first attack 1-0509 was directed against the Tangut Kingdom of Xijia, a northwestern border state of China, and ended in a declaration of allegiance by the Xijia king. A subsequent campaign was aimed at North China, which at that time was ruled by the Tungusic Jin dynasty. The fall of Beijing in 1215 marked the loss of all the territory north of the Huanghe Yellow River to the Mongols. During the following years, the Jin Empire was reduced to the role of a buffer state between the Mongols in the north and the Chinese Song Empire in the south. Other campaigns were launched against Central Asia. In 1218, the Korakhatai state in East Turkestan was absorbed into the empire. The assassination of Muslim subjects of Genghis Khan by the Khwarezmians in Otrar led to a war with the Sultanate of Khwarezm, Khiva, in West Turkestan, 1219-25. Kai Wenji Mongol encampment, detail from the Kai Wenji scroll, a Chinese hand scroll of the Nan Southern Song dynasty. In 1227, the Mongol dominion stretched over the vast regions between the Caspian and China Sea Silk Road. The idea of a heavenly mission to rule the world was certainly present in Genghis Khan's own mind and in the minds of many of his successors. Military practices. Risht al-Dun, Mongol warriors from History of the World. Mongol warriors, miniature from Risht al-Dun's History of the World, 1307, in the Edinburgh University Library, Scotland. The amazing military achievements of the Mongols under Genghis Khan and his successors were due to superior strategy and tactics rather than to numerical strength. Get unlimited access Tribe Britannica Premium for free and discover more. Another factor contributing to the overwhelming success of their expeditions was the skillful use of spies and propaganda.
The Mongol Empire, Part 1 of 6. The year is 1162. Genghis Khan was born in a small yurt on the edge of the Mongolian steppe, a place of harsh climate and even harsher people. Life was brutal for the nomadic tribes who lived there. There was constant tribal warfare. And when Genghis was just 9 years old, his father was poisoned, forcing his family into exile. He then set his sights on Central Asia, destroying the Khwarezmian Empire after betraying them in a diplomatic meeting. Cities like Bukhara and Samarkand fell to his armies. His brutal tactics included siege warfare, the use of fear, spies, and adaptability. They lived in poverty for years, but Genghis was a brilliant leader and strategist. He made alliances, he betrayed rivals, and he built up his military strength. Slowly but surely, he united the Mongol tribes under his banner and proclaimed himself Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. And so the Mongol Empire began. Part 2, 10 minutes. Internal conflicts, civil wars, and succession disputes plagued these khanates. And then came the Black Death, which traveled along trade routes, weakening the empires. In 1368, the Yuan dynasty was overthrown and the Ming dynasty rose in its place. The Mongols also impacted warfare with their use of the stirrup, horse archery, and organized military divisions. What we see is a brilliant, if brutal, People who were once considered barbarians are now seen as brilliant tacticians and unifiers. Their legendary status continues to endure. Genghis Khan is revered in Mongolia and his military strategies are studied around the world. Mongol Khan continued this expansion, targeting the Middle East and South China. Kublai Khan, who reigned from 1260 to 1294, founded the Yuan dynasty in China and was the first non-Chinese emperor to rule all of China. Marco Polo visited Kublai's court and described its grandeur in his book, The Marvels of the World. Conquest and expansion. Genghis turned his attention to China, attacking the Xizia and the Jin dynasty in northern China. He used terror and psychological warfare to great effect. Part 3. A global force. Genghis Khan's administration was a meritocracy that valued loyalty and competence over birthright. He was also religiously tolerant, which helped to secure his empire. He established a legal code called the Yasuf, which helped to unify his vast empire. Under his successors, Akkadian, Mughal, and Kublai Khan, the Silk Road flourished as trade quadrupled. They rebuilt infrastructure and crushed rebellions. Part 4. The Golden Age. Akkadian Khan, who ruled from 1229 to 1241, conquered Eastern Europe, Russia, and more of China. Part 5. Too vast to control. The empire split into four khanates: the Yuan dynasty in China, the Ilkhanate in Persia, the Sukhothai Khanate in Central Asia, and the Golden Horde in Russia. Part 6. Legacy. Despite their short rule in China, the Mongols ushered in a golden age of cultural exchange between East and West. Paper, printing, and gunpowder spread westward. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.